Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 Tour Championship Initial Research Show. We have made it to the finish of the PGA Tour season. We are in Atlanta, Georgia at Eastlake Golf Club for the Tour Championship. The top 30 players of the year have made it here. How was your BMW Championship? What did you think of Castle Pines? I thought the golf course was immaculate. It was great. I did not get anything right. I thought it was going to play pretty easy. It was pretty difficult, even for the top 50 players in the PGA Tour. So how was your week? Would love to hear from you all. As I alluded to, mine was another disaster. So 2 straight weeks of very, very poor performances. However, I do accept last week's a little bit more than the St. Jude with a brand new course. Wasn't sure exactly how it was going to play. And in a 50-man field, and even more so this week, but in a 50-man field, you have to take some chances. I took some chances on some unique plays, and they just didn't pan out. So I want to hear from you all about last week and this week for Eastlake. So let's get into the regular show, shall we? All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler and a much better golf DFS player. Look, if you have Fantasy National, you're not going to have to listen to a moron like me. You're going to play all the Ludwig Aubert. You're going to play Keegan Bradley, Adam Scott. You're going to avoid the Adam Hadwin, the Eric Cole, and all of that I just simply got wrong last week. So go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where returning tomorrow, I will post some research around the previous 5 or 4 winners of the Tour Championship, at least since the implementation of the staggered start scoring. So I believe it's actually 5 years now to think about it, because it was implemented in 2019. But that returns tomorrow over on social media. I will have some research around some staggered start formatting, winning scores, winner patterns coming into Eastlake, and the players in the field this week who matched that pattern. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contests I play. If you followed me, you would have seen all of the Adam Hadwin, the Eric Cole that I played last week, which just didn't turn out well. I did play quite a bit of Xander. He was my top play in the upper portion of the price board, but I was very unique last week, trying to get very, very greedy, and it just didn't work out. But every week I post my weekly betting cards and my top player usage over there on X. So give me a follow if you want to see those pieces of information every week. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. It's a wonderful way to start your week of preparation. He continues to update you with his own version of course history, recent form. His article, The Fringe, comes out every Sunday. So it's honestly a great way to start your week, to get you prepared for the week ahead. And if you're a subscriber to his article, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday evening as we continue the DFS talk over there. We talk about game theory, our favorite areas, the price board, favorite plays, least favorite plays, all of that. The only way you're going to be able to join us, again, is if you are subscribed to his article. So make sure you're doing that. It is free to do. And show him some support. Follow him over on social media. Lastly, we are live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. Again, how was the BMW? Hopefully it was a lot better than mine. What are you looking forward to for Eastlake? Do you think Scotty wins this year? He's been in the lead a couple of times and has not closed the deal. If Scotty's not your favorite, who is the favorite? And all of that good stuff. How much do you know of the course? So I want to hear from you all. So feel free to jump in chat. And then if you're not able to catch the show live, feel free to jump into the comments. But let's do our initial research for the 2024 Tour Championship. And we start, as we do every Sunday evening, over at the GCSAA Tournament Fact Sheet. Don't mind me as I clean off these glasses here very quickly. As I mentioned in the intro, we are in Atlanta, Georgia at Eastlake Golf Club for the customary conclusion of the PGA Tour season, the Tour Championship. Eastlake has hosted the Tour Championship since the early 2000s. Before then, it went back and forth with another golf course, which, to be quite honest with you, I don't know offhand. I was not big into golf that far ago or that long ago. Some specifics around Eastlake. This is not an original Don Ross design. You will see Don Ross get credit for Eastlake, and I make this mistake a lot as well. But the original architect is actually Tom Bindelow in 1904. Don Ross came in a few years later and made some slight adjustments to it. You see, it has been tinkered with quite a bit over the years. Reese Jones has done several projects here at Eastlake, and then you notice they actually did one this past winter. So there are a few changes around Eastlake from what has traditionally been seen. So we'll make sure to talk about that. But Eastlake, as it stands now, is a par 71. That's right. They did change one par 4 into a par 5. So now it is a par 71 that measures close to 7,500 yards. So this is quite an adjustment, especially for players, say, like Xander or Rory, who are traditionally here year after year. This is going to be quite a bit different than what it has been in the past. You see, in 2023, it was close to 7,400 yards, not quite, as a par 70, so still fairly long as a par 70. As a par 71, sitting at 7,500 yards, pretty long course. So that is one of the first filters that we can look at this week, looking at some long course metrics, long course filter in Fantasy National on top of the Don Ross filter. So that's the first obvious change around Eastlake, is that it has been lengthened. And one of the par 4s has been changed to a par 5. Some other specifics around Eastlake. The greens, slightly larger than average size on the PGA Tour. The average green size on the PGA Tour is about 6,000 square feet, maybe slightly under that. But I just like to use a nice round number. So average is 6,000, so slightly larger. Acres of fairway 29, and you see this note up from 24. So it does seem like they have widened the fairways a little bit, or at least are increasing the fairway area on the course. Eastlake was traditionally a pretty narrow golf course in terms of off the tee, trying to find fairways. So it seems like they have widened some of these fairways. A little bit of rough. Bunkers. They've added 4 new bunkers. Holes with water in play, now up to 8 as opposed to 6. I believe there was a creek or tributary that they have restored that comes into play on a couple of holes. I believe it's on the front 9. So several changes around Eastlake. Of course, the most obvious being the change in par and yardage, and probably the second biggest change at Eastlake is that the greens and the fairways have been changed slightly, in the sense that the greens were traditionally Bermuda, but they were Mini Verde Bermuda. Now they are Tiff Eagle Bermuda. So let me grab my cheat sheet here, as I have listed the courses, and this is per the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. The courses that are listed as having Tiff Eagle per the GCSAA, you have Bay Hill host of the Arnold Palmer Invitational, Kapalua Plantation Course, the Tournament of Champions, PGA National, host of the what used to be Honda, now or was the Cognizant this year, Port Royal, which is the host of the Bermuda Championship in the fall, and Sea Island, host of the RSM in the fall. So those 5 courses, per the GCSAA, have a listed TIF Eagle Bermuda. So we'll be able to take a look at some specific putting metrics on TIF Eagle if we're wanting to. And the other change around the course is that these fairways are now Zorro Zoysia. They were a different kind of Zoysia last year. So still Zoysia fairways, but a different subtype. So those are the biggest changes around Eastlake. We'll take a look at some of these notes here. This past year, the course was completely rebuilt from the ground up in 10 months, had a 13-week grow-in period. Restoration highlights include reshaping fairways and green complexes. There we go. Fairway conversion from Meyer Zoysia to Zorro Zoysia. To be honest, I'm not an agronomist. I don't know the fine intricacies and differences between those two types of zoysia. But for you grass turf enthusiasts, you'll want to make a note that they changed the specific subtype of zoysia. Greens converted from Mini Verde to TIF Eagle Bermuda. Bunker placement in fairways and greens, so they changed some bunker layout. Stream reclamation between 6 and 7. Converting number 14 to a par 5. And adding a variety of tees. So there's a list of all of the changes that happened this past winter in at Eastlake. But the key takeaways for the week, again, this is a Don Ross, or Don Ross gets a lot of credit for being the course architect, and we will take a look at some Don Ross filters in Fantasy National, but it is truly a Tom Bindelow original design. Eastlake has been lengthened to a 7,500 yard par 71. Greens are slightly larger than average. A few holes with water in play. Fast TIF Eagle Bermuda, and the change in fairways to Zorro Zoysia. There's a look at Eastlake and the Tour Championship from a GCSAA tournament fact sheet standpoint. We will move to Fantasy National, and I am actually going to see if they have loaded in the correct 30. Does not look like they have. So I have 4 players starred. They were in the Tour Championship at the start of Sunday and then have played their way out. Jason Day, Brian Harmon, Denny McCarthy, and Davis Thompson did not make the Tour Championship. That's why they are starred. And the players that are not loaded into Fantasy National are Chris Kirk, Tommy Fleetwood, Keegan Bradley, and Adam Scott. So those 4 players will be loaded in by tomorrow, taking the place of the players that are starred here. So just be aware of that as we move forward this evening. First thing that we can do, let's take a look at long courses, shall we? This has been lengthened to 7,500 yards. So on long courses in the past 2 years, or 36 rounds, whichever happens first, your top performers in the field of the 26 that are correct loaded into Fantasy National at the moment, your top performers are Xander, Scotty Scheffler, Rory, Sungjae, Akshay Bhatia, Wyndham Clark, Sahith Theegala, Ben On, Victor Hovland, and Colin Morikawa. If we take a look at Don Ross designs, our top performers on Don Ross designs the past couple of years. Aaron Rai, Xander, Hovland, Morikawa, Wyndham Clark, Rory, Batia, Sungjae, Billy Ho, and Christian Bezuidenhout. Those are your top 10 in terms of performance at Don Ross designs. I won't be doing a whole lot with this just because it's such a small sample size. You see Wyndham Clark, it's just from the Tour Championship last year. The U.S. Open isn't even being populated right now with Pinehurst from this year, which is Don Ross's shining jewel. So small sample size here. Not going to get too carried away with it. I'm more so interested in that long course filter. But before we go too much further, let's go ahead and take a look at Fantasy Nationals course breakdown. And I'm going to check the historic conditions here really quickly. Even though you see several rounds that have played the easy, I'm actually under the impression that this is more average. Again, this is probably getting set to the fact that they're going off the total score. So, for example, Victor Hovland's winning score last year was 27 under. Remember, with the staggered start format, he got some bonus strokes. In fact, he was second coming into the week last week. So he did shoot 19 under par actual last year, which would, maybe be average to easy. But I truly don't think it plays as easy as the past couple of years have suggested. It's definitely not difficult, especially with all these changes that have gone on. It used to play average to difficult. Now it plays more average to easy. Of course, we've always been on Bermuda here. The rough length has been listed at long, although it's only listed at, I believe, 2.5 inches on the GCSA tournament fact sheet. So not nearly the length of rough that we were dealing with at Castle Pines this past week at the BMW, or these other courses like Bay Hill, Memorial, these other really difficult challenges, in the southern Florida and all that. So I can only go by what is listed here on Fantasy National. It is listed as long. 2.5, I would think, is more average. You see the greens, they are generally lightning and fast. A lot of lightning, maybe some fast, but a lot of lightning. So I don't know if we'll be using a speed filter, considering we have the specific Tiff Eagle Bermuda moniker that we know. But one thing that I'm thinking about as I'm speaking about it, you think about Kapalua, which is also Tiff Eagle. Kapalua's got some of the slowest greens on tour, and these at East Lake definitely aren't slow. So that might be something to think about. We might want to look at just maybe Fast and Lightning Bermuda as opposed to some specific Tiff Eagle. We might look at both, to be honest. Bay Hill is traditionally lightning fast, so that would certainly apply. RSM, Sea Island, generally, I believe, fast. Maybe even average if they have a lot of rain that week. So maybe Tiff Eagle's not the best. Maybe we'll look at Fast Bermuda. Would be interested to hear your all's take on that, so feel free to jump in chat or put it in the comments what you all think. But I just wanted to get a look at the historic conditions here really quickly before we go into Fantasy Nationals course breakdown. Now remember, this is from last year, or a traditional East Lake. The very difficult par 4 14th, you see that measured 520 yards. This has been converted to a par 5. This par 5 now measures about 580. So there are 3 par 5s now at East Lake. The par 5 6th, which plays to 6/10 of a shot under par. You see it's very short, 525. And the par 5 18th plays to a half a shot under par. So traditionally the par 5s have been taken advantage of here at East Lake. Even though this was the most difficult hole traditionally at East Lake, I do think this is going to be a scoring opportunity now because it is simply a par 5. With that said, there are still some very difficult holes here around Eastlake. Par 4 first plays almost 2/10 of a shot over par, 1500ths or so. Same for the par 4 8th. The par 4 4th, a little bit more than a 10th. Par 3 9th plays to a 10th. A 10th on this long par 3 on the back 9. So lots of difficult holes still around Eastlake, but there are plenty of scoring opportunities as well. You've got a couple of very short par 4s. Par 4 third, 391, plays to that same 1600ths under par that I was highlighting on the difficult end. You've got another short par 4 on the back 9, par 4 12th, plays to 1400ths. You know, a 10th, a 10th. So another 10th up here. So there are scoring opportunities around Eastlake, and there are some bigger numbers around Eastlake. Well, more so bogeys. You do have the par 4 8th yields a double at 6% because I believe that green is protected by water. You got a couple of higher double bogey rates here on the back 9 as well. But and this is why I was more so thinking it was average as opposed to easy. Because if you take away the 2 par 5s traditionally, the par 5 18th playing a half a shot, 6/10 of a shot on the short par 5 on the front, this is about equal. This is about average. You've got some holes at 1600ths over and 1600ths under. So, yeah, I just think it plays to about average. And the length of the course comes into the par 3s and a few of the par 4s. Par 3 second, 197. One of the shorter par 3s on the course. 235, 214, 211. I do believe one of these par 3s has been lengthened to 260 this year. My guess would be the par 3 9th, but I can't confirm that. But these par 3s are long, and they're generally pretty difficult. Only the par 3 second played under par. And then you have a few longer par 4s as well. Now, we don't have the behemoth 520-yard par 4 anymore, but we still have 454, 481, 479, 469. And some of these holes have been lengthened as well with some adding of tee boxes. So a good mix of holes here between short par 4s, long par 4s. All the par 3s are going to be long and play pretty difficult. If we move to average strokes gained by shot type over the past few years here at Eastlake, looking at our top 10s, as you would expect with a Don Ross design, you're going to have to hit your approaches really well. But the off the tee and the around the green are pretty similar. Pretty similar. Now the putting is lagging behind, and remember, this is only 30-man fields. So the fact that the approach has this much of a gap on the putting is pretty striking. Remember, only a 30-man field to collect this data. If we go to top 5s, guys are putting it a little bit better, but you see this emphasis on off the tee start to rise as well. And then for our winners, look at off the tee. Actually surpasses the approach, which is surprising. Now the winners, yes, they're just making a lot of putts. That's what you're going to do. But just the extreme emphasis on off the tee as you climb the leaderboard here at Eastlake. Looking at strokes gained by hole by par, even though traditionally there were only 2 par 5s, they were still getting taken advantage of quite frequently. As you see, they were leading in terms of strokes gained by hole by par. The 4s and then the 3s. For the top 5s, much the same. And then for our winners, historically, they were really taking advantage of the par 5. So we'll have to see and try to infer how much we think this change on the 14th being changed to a par 5, how much we want to add some emphasis into the par 5s since there's now 3 of them here at Eastlake. moving on to hole composition, you see the par threes. This is a little bit deceptive. Says 175 to 200. It's, again, remember, 197. So you can actually see that playing 200 plus easily. Do we have two par threes in the two teens? And then the 235, now probably 260 par three. So long par threes. Two shorter par fours that are good scoring opportunities. The majority of our par fours, 5 of the 11, are between 450 and 500, and then several at 400 to 450. Now, this has moved. This is no longer a par 4, so this has moved to this bucket over here. So our par 5s, there are 3 of them, 1 short and 2 mid-length par 5s here at Eastlake now. Driving accurate, you see that we don't have a estimated proximity chart. Here in Fantasy National. Again, this is coming from Gabe's article, so credit goes to Gabe on this. But in his article, it did say that he thinks that about 30 to 32% of the approaches at Eastlake come from 200 plus yards. I can't confirm that. I don't know where he's getting that. But it does make some sense considering the par 5s were getting attacked. And there are a few holes with forced dog legs and a couple of forced layups. So I could see it. I don't know about 30%. That seems a little bit high. I'm just passing that information along to you. Driving accuracy, much less than the average tour event. Despite the fact that these are Bermuda fairways, Bermuda rough. And we spent some time talking about that at the St. Jude. Talking about how Bermuda rough can be difficult to play out of. It promotes flyers, and if players aren't used to Bermuda rough, they can struggle with it. Surprisingly, doesn't seem to be a lot of premium on finding the fairway here. Accuracy, much less than the average tour event. Greens, slightly less than the average tour event, and scrambling is slightly less than the average tour event. So this is why I don't think it's all that easy, because greens aren't getting hit a lot. It's not easy to scramble around here. That's why I just don't believe in in using that easy to par filter. However, distance is quite magnified here. 292 and a third, as opposed to a 283 and a half at the average tour event. So players are grabbing driver quite a bit around Eastlake, despite the fact there are some dog legs and some forced layups. So it seems like for the players that have made it to Eastlake in the past, they are grabbing driver whenever they can. When a player is hitting the green in regulation, you see the proximity is much, much closer to the hole than the average tour event as well. So there's some more detailed data around Eastlake in the past. Again, this scorecard has changed because the 14th is now a par 5. But some detailed data here around strokes gained by shot type and hole by par and whatnot. So having seen that a little bit, and having seen the extreme amount of off the tee importance as you rise on the leaderboard, in the past 24 rounds or 3 months, your top off the tee players in the field that are loaded in the Fantasy National: Victor Hovland, Rory, Scotty, Colin Morikawa, Ludwig Aubert, Sahith Theegala, Sepp Straka, Hideki, Bobby Mack, and Sam Burns and Tom Hoge. As far as I know, I actually have not heard what Bobby Mack's withdrawal was for. Last I had heard, Hideki's withdrawal was he was citing a back issue at the BMW, and that's why he withdrew. I have not heard the reason for Bobby Mack's yet. Granted, I was very busy this weekend, so I wasn't too terribly tuned in to the BMW. So there's a look at some off the tee in that same time frame, 3 months or 24 rounds. Your top approach players in the field: Scotty, Tony Finau, Aaron Rai, Xander, Hovland, Shane Lowry, Ludwig Aubert, Tom Hoge, Colin Morikawa, and Sung Jae. And then lastly, we'll take a look at 2 different putting metrics here. We're going to go with the easiest one here first. We're just going to look at some fast and lightning Bermuda. We're going to have to expand the time frame, go to the past 2 years. But your top putters on fast and lightning Bermuda in the past couple of years: Wyndham Clark, Sahith Theegala, Seabass, Christian Bezuidenhout, Russell Henley, Xander Schauffele, Sam Burns, Ludwig Aubert, Tom Hoge, Billy Horschel, and Rory. There's your top 10 putters on fast and lightning Bermuda. Now, if we want to get very specific, we're going to take a look at the courses that have TIFF Eagle Bermuda. So we're going to start with Bay Hill, host of the Arnold Palmer. We have Kapalua, the Plantation course. I'm not sure how much I like this one, because even though they are TIFF Eagle out there at Kapalua, these are some of the slowest greens on tour. So you can debate on which one, or on the legitimacy of that. PGA National, host of the what used to be Honda, now Cognizant Classic. We have Sea Island, the Seaside course, and lastly is Port Royal. Well, hello there. Thanks for tuning in. Much appreciated. Hopefully your week and weekend went well. Thanks for jumping into chat. Latha, I guess is how you would say that. And then Port Royal, host of the Bermuda. So let's apply those course filters and your top putters on specifically TIFF Eagle Bermuda the past 2 years have been Ludwig Aubert. Again, his win at the RSM. Sam Burns, Sahith Theegala, Shane Lowry, Patrick Cantlay, Pavone, Hovland, Sung Jae, Seabass, and Taylor Pendrith. Those are your top 10 putters on specifically TIFF Eagle Bermuda. All right. With that, let's go ahead and go to the tournament history tab here at Fantasy National. This is performance specifically at Eastlake the past 5 years, and this is very, very convenient because 2019 was the implementation of the staggered started format. You see our overwhelming, just by a wide margin, best player traditionally at Eastlake has been Xander. You see his performance: 3 runner-ups, tied for 5th, and a solo 4th. He has been exceptional at Eastlake, and we'll have some more information on him a little bit later on this evening, but a lot tomorrow. Rory, 2-time winner here at Eastlake in that staggered start format. Victor Hovland is our defending champion. He's played very, very well. Justin Thomas has never finished outside the top 5 when he's made it to Eastlake. Obviously, he did not last year. These 4, and especially Xander is very clearly at the pinnacle, at the top. Then Rory, Hovland, and JT make up this very, very strong second tier of performers, at least in the field this week at Eastlake. And then there's a significant drop-off from Justin Thomas to Sepp Straka. So Straka has played fairly well. Wyndham Clark finished solo third last year. Finau's had some mixed success. Remember, T20 seems okay, but it's only a 30-man field. Scheffler tied for second, tied for sixth. He's also been 22nd. Not great. The other end of the spectrum, players who have not played well around East Lake. Sahith Theegala, only one time, but he was very, very poor in 2022. Brian Harmon, the past 2 years, has been very poor around East Lake. Billy Horschel, not great around East Lake. Sam Burns has not been good around East Lake. Hideki, much the same. Morikawa, much the same. So, and what do these players mostly lack? Something with the driver. Theegala gets very, very wayward. He can hit it a decent ways, but he can get wayward. Much the same with Sam Burns. Morikawa is generally very accurate, but lacks a lot of distance. So this is the what's the word I'm looking for here? The emphasis, I guess. This is the emphasis on off the tee. You have to have a total driving performance. That's why you see Xander up here. You see Rory up here. Hovland. These guys generally have quite a bit of distance and are pretty darn accurate with their driver as well. So there's a look at your top historical performers in the staggered starting format here at East Lake. With that, we'll move to Microsoft Excel and the return of the early look file. Considering the St. Jude, while we had a few years at TPC Southwind, we only had 1 year of data at the time of it being played in its current format of 70 players. So no early look file there. No early look file last week. Obviously, Castle Pines had not been seen. So the return of the early look file. These are the players in the field this week. There are 20. There are 20 players in the field this week who have played East Lake with the staggered start format. So 10 new faces here this week. You see Wyndham Clark finished third last year, but the overwhelming strokes gained total leader, Xander, who has been exceptional here on the greens with the irons. I mean, he's lit East Lake up. Justin Thomas has been very, very good. Rory doing it all with the driver and the putter. Cantlay has been pretty solid. Scotty, been okay. And then you come down into some players that have been, a little bit less superb. Straka has been okay, I suppose. Colin Morikawa doing it, a lot with the irons, but his putter has been woeful at East Lake. Theegala had a really bad year. Horschel has not been very good here. Sam Burns has not done, he's putt very well here, but look at those irons around East Lake. They have been atrocious. So you see actually all 20 players here and their performance at East Lake. We can take a quick gander through, but I'm going to save the majority of this for tomorrow. But look at the driving distance, and this is specifically at East Lake. Now, Hoagie doesn't have a lot of distance, but every other player, Wyndham Clark, minus 2.4 over 4 rounds, that's pretty darn close to field average. Everybody else is positive in distance, and you see the amount of success they've had. Finau, averaging a 13th place finish isn't, fantastic by any means, but it's worth noting. But Scotty, Patrick Cantlay, Rory, Xander, these guys can move it off the tee. Looking at birdies, bogeys, again, looks like the higher raw numbers are in the birdies gained. Perhaps the more consistent is bogey avoidance, but it'll be interesting to look at prior leaderboards tomorrow. Moving into par 3s, 4s, and 5s. Not a whole lot gained in these par 3s. Like Keegan's played him well, Tom Hoagie's played him well, but like, look at Xander. He's just +1 on average. Justin Thomas +1, Rory's +1. Where they are making their hay, probably no surprise, they're playing these par 4s extremely, extremely well. And they're taking advantage of the par 5s, to be fair to them. So, interesting with that. As a quick preview for tomorrow, we are going to get into a lot of the staggered start data, as you can see here. So we'll get into that. Of course, we'll take a look at the winner matrix, take a look at some winner form, and all that for the data dive tomorrow. But that's going to be it for the show this evening. Thanks to Latha for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Love what I do. Taking an in-depth look at golf statistics, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Past 2 weeks notwithstanding, because it has been very poor on my end. So we're going to try to finish the PGA Tour season off on a high note and get back to our winning ways that we were before the FedEx Cup playoffs started. So thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you made this past week for the BMW Championship, for all of the DFS contests you played this past week for the BMW Championship. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.